So, how many names have you got on that list?
About 10, 12.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Okay, then I'm going to pause for a minute, and
Yep.
you're going to come up with your top 5. So I'm going to pause, and I'll give you a minute. Okay, we're back. Dutch has taken a
I
few
have
minutes
it.
out. He's got it. He's got it. So, how many names? We've got top
Ox,
5.
let me do my Ox Baker impression. Ah, that's what he do all the time.
He
All right, let's go.
had a lovely singing voice over here, Ox
Oh, he
Baker.
did. Oh, he was good. He was great.
So,
Okay,
you've got
you
a top
ready
5.
for this?
Well,
Yes,
you've
I
got a
do.
top 5, but you also said there's a couple of honourable mentions.
Yes, they are. My next to last honorable mention is Scott Hall. And for the same thing, and they're both kind of eliminated from the top 5, not because of work rate or expertise or wrestling ability, but it's because unreliability, because of their background. Let me say they were unreliable. And the last one I have, this is like number. If we have the top 5, then 2. At number 7 would be Scott Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Next to him, and I love these guys, but he was great to watch work. I used to love to watch his matches because they were, one person's match. After you watch one, you might watch a few more, but this guy's matches differed every night according to who he's working with. And unlike Ric Flair, because Ric Flair did the same thing for 20 years. Outside off the top rope, hit him, bump, take the bump, big slam. But Jake the Snake. Jake the Snake Roberts comes in at number 6. And again, not because of his work, not because of his interviews, but because you didn't know when those demons would take over. And when you have a world champion, there's a lot of money riding on this guy. And he's booked 300 days a year, so he has to be able to go, which is a tribute to Flair. I think Flair shoots a lot of shit out of his mouth. But when he was working those 320 days a year and working out and drinking like he did, he is a tough son of a gun. He was probably, he was a great world champion, drew a lot of money. So we got in number 7, Scott Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Number 6 is Snake.
Mm-hmm.
Coming in at number 5, and this may shock you, Steven Regal.
Really?
Yes.
That does shock me.
Because he was British. He was a non-American. He's probably an American now. And he had a great interview and a great presence. So, and I've told people this. I've told guys from the UK that when they get over here in the United States and they start talking into that English that they use, you immediately feel like inferior just by the language. Hey, mate. But I think he would have been, and he had a great interview. And he was a pretty big guy, too. He was about 6'2", about 240. And he just had certain moves that would infuriate American fans. And I think he would have been Japanese fans, too. But he certainly had the interview and the presence. He comes in at number 5. Coming in at number 4 on the Dutch and James's top 5 of all time to be future NWA heavyweight champions would be my good friend, Mr. Rick Rude, at number 4. And again, I'm putting a lot of attention on presence and on ability. And I think, and while Rick wasn't as good as Regal, I think he could have, there's all kind of different styles at work. And I think he had a style and the body that would work.
Yeah, he looks good on a poster. Rick Rude certainly does.
Yeah. And he's a good looking guy. Women love him. And let's face what wrestling is. It's male burlesque, basically. That's what it is. I heard a guy say one time, my wife will only go with me to wrestling. I went, well, you idiot. She's going and because she's looking at the guys, it's like her taking you to a strip show, basically.
And my wife always takes about 25 minutes to get back from the concession stand.
Oh, my God. Hey, there's a good story about that, too. I have to tell one day about a girl who left the ringside to go to the concession stand, and she got back about 30 minutes later.
Hell of a line, eh?
Oh, it's a true story. It's a true story. Told to me by Mr. Robert Fuller. I can tell that.
Yes. So, nice.
Because so he comes in at number 4, Rick Rude. Number 3, another old friend of mine, Mr. Paul Orndorff. Number 3. And I knew Orndorff in Florida years ago, and he hadn't really started wrestling. He was just a friend of Mike Graham, who was the son of the legendary promoter in Florida, Eddie Graham, and he was just a friend. And I knew nothing of his background, but everybody I talked to, because I was an outsider. I didn't grow up in Florida. So everybody I talked to, when you bring up Orndorff's name, they said, boy, that's one kick-ass MFer that he is. And he played for the University of Tampa. He was a running back. He played pro ball, I think, 1 or 2 years. But he was one hell of an athlete and a nice guy who didn't take any bullshit from anybody. But when he talked to me, he was so respectful. And he was talking to me one day, and I went, wait a minute. Why is this guy talking to me? I didn't even know him, but he came up to talk to me. And he said, Mike told me you're a hell of a worker, and if I wanted to learn something, come and talk to you. And I went, really? See, that was something I didn't even know. But now he showed that he's willing to learn. And I never worked with him because I left or something happened. But he got better, a lot better. And I think he was wasn't he in the first WrestleMania or second WrestleMania?
Orndorff. Yeah, he was in the main event. He was tagging against Hulk Hogan.
So that's how far. And Hogan was another friend from Florida. They all knew each other growing up, and they all went to high school together. So, and they all had stories about Orndorff kicking somebody's ass at some drive-in restaurant or whatever. Like, you drive in and you order off the little kiosk outside. They said there have been several instances of one guy say something to him. He just got out and just beat the crap out of him. And there's only like 3 or 4 punches thrown, and he'd throw 3 of them. And the guys all laid out. But they had a lot of respect for Paul Orndorff. So, and I have a lot of respect for him too. He's passed away now, and we lost a good one. Mm-hmm. So, condolences to your family, Mr. Paul. Number 2, met this guy years ago that would have been a great NWA heavyweight champion, and Mr. Arn Anderson.
Ah.
The reason I've already given why he would be a good champion. Great interview, and there was no bullshit to him. Like Harley Race was the champion, but there was no bullshit to Harley. Harley didn't want to do anything that the people would chuckle at. Said, nope, we're in the wrestling business, not the comedy business. So, and AA would have been very good. He wasn't that tall either, but he was tall enough. Look at my little blue spot there. He was tall enough He was just tall enough. We talked about Owen Hart a little earlier. He's a little too short, I think. And I do think that they make too much of size, but Arn was and a great talker, because when he's talking, and I used to like, when you're talking, and I forgot where I was, but they taught me this technique. When a guy's talking and he's going to be talking for a minute, they would slowly bring that camera in very slowly. And before you know it, you're right in his face and he's talking right to you. That is a production technique that's very effective. So he's the number 2 guy. The number 1 guy that I picked out of these 14 names, you give me like 50 names.
Yeah, I gave you the rest as well, but gave you about 120.
You didn't give me that many.
I gave you enough. Yeah.
Yeah, you gave me enough.
I had an asthma attack halfway through.
Out of all of these, who do you think I picked?
Okay, I'm going to write the name down in my hand so the viewers cannot see.
Yep.
Is it that?
Well, how did you know that?
I just guessed.
See?
Tell me who it is.
That's a good guess. That's really a good guess. Out of these 100 people, the names you gave me, Ted DiBiase. Okay, could you tell by the way I described him before?
Yeah, we didn't talk too much about him, but I could tell you're definitely a fan.
Now, fans, you may say, bullshit. They probably went on one of their like little breaks and said, hey, I'm going to say this, and you tell them how smart I am. And I was, but I didn't tell him, really. I did not.
No, do you know what? I can tell by the reaction. And also, I've circled, I'll show this to the people actually. I've circled some names. You can see on top there, maybe the top 10. And I remember that you were particularly enthusiastic about Ted. So yeah. He wasn't picked yet, and I've thought of him because the only other people around him were Roddy Piper, who you've discounted, Scott Hall, who we've already said, Jake, that you've already said, Orndorff and Rick Rude, who we've already said, Owen, you discounted, Magnum TA. I didn't think you'd pick. I'm surprised you went Arn Anderson so high.
Yeah.
Jimmy Snooker, I know you discounted, and we mentioned Goldust Regal, Butch Reed, a couple of others as well. Wahoo McDaniel we mentioned as well. But enough about this list. Tell me about your pick and why.
Ted is a workhorse, and that's what an NWA champion has to be. He has to be able to adapt to almost anybody's style. That's where Roddy Piper, that what disqualified him. I don't think he would fit with some of these regional champions or regional, challenges. I don't think he would have had very good matches with them. And this whole list, they could have a match with a broomstick and get it over. Ted was, he just had that interview about him, the work about him. But Ted's interview wasn't his strongest part. His work is. And he could adapt to anybody. So that's why I picked him. So there's a pretty good list here.